Burkina Faso, a landlocked country tucked deep in the heart of West Africa, is now living through one of the darkest chapters in its modern history. For decades, the country was known for its music, its hospitality, and its peaceful, resilient spirit. But in recent years, Burkina Faso has become a headline, though not one that dominates international news. It's a story of bloodshed, displacement, and fear. Extremist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS that have turned ordinary villages into battlefields. Since 2015, the violence has spiraled. Schools have shut down, markets are gone, entire communities have vanished, and over 2.5 million people have been forced to leave their homes, many now living in tents, or worse, under open skies, with no food, no future, and no protection. To understand how things fell apart, we must go back over a decade. The fall of Libya in 2011 unleashed a storm across North and West Africa. Weapons smuggled out of Libyan stockpiles found their way into the hands of extremist groups operating in the Sahel. With neighboring Mali already collapsing under insurgent pressure, Burkina Faso's northern border became porous and dangerous. Armed groups began trickling in, and the first attacks, mostly ambushes or kidnappings, were dismissed as isolated events. But as the state failed to react effectively, trust between the people and the government started to break down. Terrorist groups used this opportunity to recruit disillusioned young men, many of them poor, jobless, and desperate. These fighters weren't imported from foreign countries. They were locals, sons of farmers, former students, teenagers, boys who felt abandoned by their own government and found belonging, power, or survival among insurgents. As the violence spread, the Burkina Faso military struggled. Underfunded, poorly trained, and sometimes accused of misconduct, they couldn't contain the threat. By the early 2020s, more than 40% of the national territory was considered outside full government control. Towns fell, roads became death traps, rural life became impossible. Farmers abandoned fields, teachers abandoned classrooms, and families began fleeing en masse, creating one of the world's fastest-growing displacement crises, one that rarely made international headlines. Then came a turning point. In September 2022, a young military captain named Ibrahim Traoré staged a coup, the second in less than a year. At just 34, Traoré was ambitious, sharp-tongued, and fed up with what he called the failures of the old guard. He accused his superiors of corruption, weakness, and betrayal of the people. And for many Burkina Faso, especially the youth, his rise felt like a moment of hope. Here was a man who looked like them, spoke like them, and seemed ready to fight not just the terrorists, but the broken system itself. Since coming to power, Traoré has made sweeping changes. One of his most dramatic moves was to expand the civilian defense program. He mobilized tens of thousands of volunteers for the defense of the homeland, VDP, a force made up of farmers, mechanics, students. With just a few weeks of training and minimal equipment, these volunteers were sent to defend their communities. It was a bold strategy, born from desperation, but also from patriotism. For some, it restored pride and courage. For others, it raised alarm. Human rights organizations warned of abuse, revenge killings, and deepening ethnic divides. But for Traoré, it was a necessary sacrifice. The enemy was already at the gates. At the same time, Traoré cut ties with France, ending military agreements and expelling French troops from the country. He accused them of prolonging the war and prioritizing their interests over Burkina Faso's sovereignty. In their place, he sought new partners, turning to Russia and forming a new alliance with the military regimes in Mali and Niger. Together, the three countries created the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, promising to defend each other against internal and external threats. The alliance represented a major shift in West African politics, a rejection of Western involvement, and a rallying cry for African self-determination. Supporters praised the move as bold and necessary. Critics called it dangerous and destabilizing. Back home, however, the people's struggle continued. In towns like Djibo, Arbinda, and Dori, armed groups still controlled large areas. Humanitarian aid couldn't reach those in need. Some villages were under siege for months, cut off from food, medicine, and communication. Health centers were looted. Teachers fled for their lives. Mothers gave birth in the dirt. Thousands of children went without school for years. For ordinary citizens, Traoré's promises meant little if they couldn't find food or walk safely to the next village. Yet, in some areas, there were signs of progress. A few towns were reclaimed, Military operations were more coordinated, and local morale began to rise, even if only slightly. While Traoré tries to push forward his vision, other challenges are emerging. The country's economy is under enormous pressure. Inflation has hit hard. Unemployment is growing. The cost of war is draining the national budget. Foreign investment is vanishing. Journalists face restrictions, and opposition voices are silenced more frequently. Civil liberties have shrunk, and critics fear the return of authoritarian rule under the guise of national security. Traoré says the country needs stability first. Elections can come later, but later remains vague. His government has promised a new constitution and a transition plan, but timelines are uncertain and transparency is limited. Internationally, Burkina Faso is now seen as part of a larger bloc of defiant, military-led nations in the Sahel, countries rejecting Western influence and embracing what they call strategic independence. But the question remains, can this new path bring lasting peace, or will it deepen the region's isolation, making it harder to access aid, education, healthcare, and international support? For many Burkinabe, geopolitics feel far away. What matters is safety, food, jobs, and a chance to live with dignity. The fear is that, once again, ordinary people will pay the price for political power struggles. Despite all this, something remarkable persists in Burkina Faso: the spirit of its people. In the face of displacement, violence, and uncertainty, communities are still finding ways to support each other. Religious leaders are hosting peace dialogues. Women are organizing food drives. Young people are creating online movements to raise awareness and demand accountability. Even in the hardest-hit areas, there are stories of resilience, compassion, and courage. It's these stories, too often forgotten, that remind us why this crisis matters. As we speak, thousands of families in Burkina Faso are still living in fear, cut off from the world, uncertain of what tomorrow brings, and yet they keep going. Their struggle is not just about politics or war, it's about survival, identity, and hope. They are not passive victims. They are farmers, parents, students, soldiers, builders, and they are waiting, not just for peace, but for the world to notice. So, can Ibrahim Traoré end the violence? That question still hangs heavy in the air. He has shown boldness, no doubt. He has inspired many, but he also walks a narrow road between leadership and authoritarianism, between independence and isolation. His success will depend not just on his military strategies, but on his ability to unite the country, listen to its people, and build trust, not just power. Burkina Faso's future remains uncertain, but its people remain strong. Their voices matter. Their story matters, and the world can no longer afford to look away. Because what's happening in Burkina Faso is not just about one country. It's a mirror of what happens when a nation is forgotten, when people are pushed to the edge, and when the fight for peace becomes a battle for survival itself.